A good afternoon and a warm welcome to all our viewers this afternoon at Live at the Watering Hole. Now, looks like this afternoon we are starting at Elephant Pan, and what a sight we have indeed. What a good way to start at such a beautiful pan. Now I'm Japie Potgieter, and I'm going to be your host for this afternoon. I'm very excited to see what happens on Friday, Feline Friday, hopefully. Just have a look. Got some young elephant bulls cooling down in the water. I'm saying young just from a quick observation here. They don't look very old. What I do find interesting is that it looks like it is a lot deeper than what I realized here at Elephant Pan. From what I've seen in the past, I only saw some of these elephant bulls literally only a few inches deep in the water when they're moving along the edge. So interesting to see how deceiving the depth of these pans can be. And of course the elephant in the water is laying down, but deep enough for a young elephant bull to roll itself around and completely cover itself. And as we can see, there's always a constant push and a constant play. And them exercising their hierarchical right within this group. You can see those two at the back, they're pushing each other around. And what a spectacular sight. Whoa! That was quite the move. I don't think I've ever actually seen an elephant do like that, almost like what whales do, spy hopping and falling back flat down into the water. What an exciting start. And I think that corner of the pan, obviously every little creature within that pan must be stirred up and thrown into chaos. I see there's more elephants at the back, hiding in and amongst the Mopani here at the Elephant Pan. This beautiful pan, lots of water currently, and of course it's also surrounded by this beautiful Mopani woodland landscape. You can see all the dead and pushed over trees nearby. Now, I would like to remind our viewers that this is a live and interactive show. You can send through your questions to wildearth.tv/questions, and you can join it, or you can join us via X using #wildearth, or you can scan the QR code there at the bottom right, and of course you can also join us from the YouTube channel or from the website for members. And please send through questions, comments, anything you would like to talk about, anything in particular. So we've got a message from Ellie, and Ellie saying, hello Wild Earth team, Japie and Mika. And you're saying, and it's nice to see you all today. Very happy to hear that, and good to hear from you, Ellie. And Deb Davis, hi to you too. I hope you also have a very lovely afternoon with us here. And it's already seems quite exciting with all the elephant play here at the water's edge. And young bulls, regular visits to some of these pans. They are the regular customers that hang out. They're the ones that travel on their own away from the herds. The herds would have more determined movements this time of the year. And of course they would be moving to areas with lots of good food where there might be other herds around, and of course females in heat. And that's why the bigger bull elephants, they'll be moving away from their entourage, which is often formed by younger bulls like this, and they'll be looking for the females in heat. And that's when you find when the younger bulls tend to move into the areas which is out of the way of the bigger bulls. But it doesn't stop them from exercising their strength. You can see there's a big bull coming in at the back there. And have a look, immediately they've just broken their play a little bit. He just gave them a glance. Well, so CER 50, you're saying we're starting off with a wonderful pool party. Indeed we are. This is a pool party of note. Elephants swimming in a pan in the Mopani woodland. What a party. And Kim Faustino, you do say that they really love swimming, and indeed they do, especially if it's hot. It looks overcast. Normally the water, in the reflection we can see the beautiful blue sky here at Elephant Pans, and it looks like today is an overcast day, and in that area in Botswana I'm pretty sure it must be rather humid. So very, very good day for elephants to relax and cool down in the water. Ellie, you're saying not really feline, but eline, and that's good to hear. And have a look, these elephants just standing a little bit, taking note of their surroundings. You can see they're still very much attuned to each other's movements, and these two have of course latched onto each other, and this is the game for the afternoon. I wonder how long this might last. Steve Morris, you're saying you love watching elephants play in the water, and it looks like they are always having real fun. Indeed it does, Steve, but if we look closely at these two, indeed they're having fun, and you can see there's another big bull, or bigger bull there at the back, and these two are having fun indeed, but it's also a very necessary fun. It's the way they stretch their muscles, they push each other, they play fight in a way, and it's very similar to what big elephant bulls in real competition will do. Oh, that elephant, let's have a look. Something's drawn his attention. You can see, look, his trunk's coming up. Might be the other elephants around, but by the looks of it, it looks like he's missing his tail. I wonder how that would have happened. Now let's see. He's latched onto the scent of something. I don't think it's the water. What's happening there? Ooh, there's another elephant still relaxing, just checking the show out. But to get back to Steve Morris's question, or to his comment, Elephants do indeed. They look like they're always having fun, but some of it does have a little bit of seriousness. Now it might be, see, this is a herd. There's a young elephant down there and a cow. So it is possible that this bull was just investigating. You can see that elephant cow gave him a glance there. You never know, there might be an elephant that's in heat. It's interesting in areas where you have large numbers of elephants gather. You often find, due to increasingly more confined protected areas, we find that sometimes have elephants get pregnant and give birth at a very young age. Although an elephant cow can technically produce an offspring very early in her lifetime, it's usually not until the late teens that they do. You can see some big elephant bulls coming in now to come and investigate, so let's have a look and see what's happening here. That is a very big bull. We can see the clear size difference there. Have a look. Towering over the females. Gina Biddle, you're saying good morning to everybody. Morning here anyway. Not sure where you are, Gina, but yes, over here we have it just over midday, so almost 1 o'clock in Southern Africa or South Africa, where I am watching the show from. But you're saying you are viewing while you're getting ready for work. Wow, so a few hours time difference. Well, good luck. I hope you have a good day at work. Last day before the weekend, unless you're already in the weekend. And then CER50, you're saying you always it always impresses you how comfortable these large animals are in the water. Exactly. No, exactly. CER50, that is true. These big elephants do have a common ancestor. All the elephants of an aquatic common ancestor, and there was definitely a time of their lives where they had a very aquatic existence, and they've retained their high dependence on water. They've just attained some physical features as well. One of the most well known is the fact that they have no pleural cavity or airspace between the lungs and the side walls of the body. But very, very interesting indeed. From what I understand out of the elephant family tree, the remaining extant species, the African elephants, the African savanna elephant, is the oldest out of the last three, with the forest elephant just coming after that, and then of course the Asian elephant after that, in terms of a rough timeline of how they evolved. And then Wild at Heart, you're saying afternoon to Mika and Yapi. GTCY, and good to see you. I'm assuming that's what it's standing for. But yeah, you're saying you love the span and all the bird sounds, and Mopani forests are just so peaceful to see and listen. I agree, and there's so much beautiful birds unique in these type of dryland forests. Not always the type of forest that we think about when we do think about forests. We tend to think about the jungle-like forests in certain areas. But yeah, Africa, especially southern and eastern Africa, have a lot of dryland forest, broadleaf woodland forests. And the Mopani forest is certainly a very, very unique one to southern Africa. Oh, look at that. This is quite the sight. It's turning out to be a very busy afternoon here at Elephant Pan, and indeed I think it's living up to its name. You can see that big elephant bull off to the left. That is a massive elephant bull. I wonder how old that elephant would be. I'd probably say around about 40 from what I can see. You can see these two just wading through the water to get to the other side, but what an impressive creature. Taking it slower now, maybe unsure of the footing. Like the clayey soils that is often found in the depressions within Mopani woodland would make for quite a tricky situation underfoot when walking in the deeper water. You can see they're approaching the edge of the pan, but it's quite deep there. Victoria Pond. You're asking why the name of this place was changed from Hyena Pan. That's a good question, Victoria. I do not know. I was not aware that it used to be known as Hyena Pan. I'm assuming there probably at one point there was quite a bit of hyena activity. But good question. I think currently Elephant Pan is quite fitting. Seeing all the elephants here this afternoon. And have a look how clever this elephant is. Coming all the way this side to come and drink from the fresh water. And that's at the water inlet. And that's what elephants often do. They go after the fresher, cleaner water. You can see the little man-made structure then. I'm wondering if the big one will come over this way as well. Ellie, you're saying it's the tailless bull. Shame, and you're saying it's sad. It is sad. Unfortunately, these things happen. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it could be from a lot of various reasons. Sometimes, talking about hyenas earlier, I know when elephants, even the mighty elephant, when it's younger and small, it's still a target to some predators, especially group predators, and the hyena, of course, is one of those. So, here we go, the larger bull coming over. Victoria Pont is asking, do we know how that elephant lost its tail? Oh, apologies. Victoria Pont is asking Ellie if she knows how that elephant lost his tail. If you do know, Ellie, please, I would love to know as well. I'm pretty sure it would be a very interesting story. It's not often that you actually get to know these stories. And at most it could be a guess as to, well, for me at least, as to how it happened. Spazi Yankov, good to hear from you again, and hello to you there. And you say it's great to begin with some elephant bulls. I agree. I think it's always good to have elephants around. Donna Morgan, lovely to see the elephants in the water. Indeed, Donna. This is unbelievable, especially in this beautiful pan. You can see the sky looks like it's opened up a little bit, and now we can see that beautifully blue reflection. Well, talking about the elephant pan and its beautiful elephants here. I think we'll leave them for a little while. We might come back to them later on, but let's go check in a towel and see what's happening there this afternoon. Some zebras in a beautifully green background with a lot of yellow flowers. A lot of yellow flowers. Now I'm not too sure what those yellow flowers might be. They are strikingly beautiful in this green landscape. From here it's very likely it could be, although they look a little bit too yellow to be any of the abutulons. It's very likely. No, I wouldn't be able to say at this distance. Maybe hibiscus, but it looks quite a lot. Hibiscus usually have fewer flowers. But a beautiful green towel here. You can see a lot of the areas that we see around the pans now had good rains in the southern African region. So entering, if not already, in the climax stage. In fact, we are already in March, meaning that we are approaching the turn. Most of the first grasses would have dropped their seeds already. And things might already be starting to prepare for the drier season. Just have a look. Some of these zebra are just standing out, waiting their chance to get down to the water. It looks like it's very busy down there, and you can see the tails wagging, ears folded backwards. I think there's slight frustration with the slow progression of events, maybe, and all the biting flies. You can imagine around the edges of these watering holes, especially this time of the year when it's hot, there must be quite a bit of competition and frustration, especially with the insects bothering. Then, oh, just look at that, how beautiful indeed. Very, very, that water is full. This watering hole is massively full. What is that? It looks like a huge white rock. Look at that baby zebra. I couldn't get any closer. It's literally putting his head right in his mother's tail. While she's feeding, you can see her ears are just flapping. And amongst those yellow flowers. We got a interesting question from Lucy Krudi. Now Lucy's asking, what is the population number of elephants in Botswana? Lucy, this is I'm not 100% sure of the current number, but I do know indeed that it is about 200 to 300,000 elephants in that region. I know the southern African region roughly has about 70% of Africa's elephant population, which is a massive amount, and most of that is within Botswana, from what I understand. And the last numbers I heard, that the African elephant population is roughly around 500,000. So I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's more than 200,000 in Botswana, more or less at any given time, which is a massive amount of elephants for one country. And Botswana does have very strong environmental policies, and therefore the elephants do flourish in that area, especially northern Botswana. But of course, there's also a lot of them that move freely between Namibia, Angola and Botswana, and then also Zimbabwe and Botswana and Zambia. And the elephant population is doing rather well currently, and I know elephant in some area get prosecuted for their tusks. But of course, being such large animals, they need ample space. And it is a little bit worrying to think that there's so many elephants in one area of Africa. But still good to know that the numbers are on the rise. Illy, you're saying it's so beautifully green here at Tau, and yes, indeed it is. It's unbelievably green, and what a beautiful sight. The yellow flowers, green landscape, and then of course the black and white of the zebra as a stark contrast. You can clearly see it looks like a female with a young one behind her, and then that one with the broader stripes is a very beautiful male zebra. You can see the neck slightly thicker, more muscular. Victoria Pont, you're saying hopefully we see ostriches again. That would be quite spectacular. I haven't seen an ostrich here in a long time, but let's have a look. You never know, it is always possible. Those green bushes there can hide quite a lot of creatures right up until the last moment when they step out into the clearing. And there's the famous tree that survived the dry season and the onslaught of all the elephants at this watering hole. Just look at this, life getting back here. Unbelievably beautiful. And what do we have there? A water lily. That is pretty spectacular. Now these areas do tend to hide quite a bit of life, especially African jacanas do move amongst this. Well, while life continues here in the plain around the watering hole at Tau, I think let's go check in East Africa at Oldonyo to see what's happening there. And what a sight here at Oldonyo. Not quite as green anymore around the water, but We have some warthogs, quite a few, a little one, and a big elephant bull. And we know Aldonia is known for its beautiful elephant bulls. But just have a look, you can see the area around the water has been trampled. The grass is starting to turn here. And just have a look, there's some guinea fowl coming in. This should be interesting. A little bit of interaction between warthog and elephant. And have a look, the warthog struggling a little bit with the rocky edge of the pool. Now the elephant looks like he's paying attention to them. Looks like a gentle elephant, this one. Not too bothered. You can see it looks like these warthogs, the one in the water there, looks slightly older than the others. And then one younger one, much younger one. I wouldn't say it's the runt of the litter, I think maybe the next litter. Yeah, look, this elephant just going along. Now elephants can store much as 8 liters, some more, in their trunk. Well, that's what they can take up in one gulp. I know they don't always drink all of that, so they often squirt out the first little bit and the last little bit, very likely due to picking up some sediment or surface material. But look at that. There was a blow into the water trying to get some mud, it looks like. Oh, definitely looks like there's some mud in that water. Whatever has been gathered there from all the animals carrying mud in from around this area nearby. Will add some extra protection against the very hot sun here near the equator. Just to have a look. Now he's had his drink, so he's cooling down all the spots behind the ears, over the shoulders, under the belly, and on the flanks. Now, James Entwistle is asking a very interesting question. James is asking if China still have ivory factories. James, I honestly don't know exactly how to answer this question. I don't have extensive knowledge of the ivory trade within China. I do know that obviously it holds a lot of historical significance within Chinese culture, but also in a lot of other cultures. And the ivory trade is also very old. I do know that there used to be formal factories, and in a lot of cases ivory has become taken off some of the trading lists. I do know that it is still traded. I think I do know that it's, whether it's illegal or legal, it's definitely still traded. But I don't know the exact extent to whether or not there's certain ivory factories that still exists. Definitely something I'll have to do more research on, but regardless of that, elephants still do get poached, unfortunately, and prosecuted for ivory, and ivory still do get traded and confiscated. And of course a lot of that happens within the eastern side of the continents, not necessarily just China. There's also other countries in the surrounding areas, but it's still very much a sought after commodity, and whether legal or illegal, people do tend to pay a lot of money for it. Joan Mello, happy Friday to you, and you're saying happy Friday to myself and Wild Earth. So from all of us here at Wild Earth, happy Friday to you. And Gina Biddle, you saying the Ellies are making your day even before it begins. Very happy to hear that. Have a look here. And this is one of those days where all the creatures seem to be getting along. See that big elephant bull is so gentle. These giraffes are drinking with it. Now, I know often the giraffes stand on the side and they wait their turn. And it's not often that we see both these species around the water, around this little pan at least, in such close proximity. You can see this elephant is very gentle in nature. Yep, gave them a little bit of a fright, but not too much to startle them off completely. And the oxpeckers are more of an irritation. They're obviously also a little bit more determined to have a drink. Those are quite large, long gulps for giraffe. Must be very hot here. Victoria Pont, here comes the giraffe indeed. And what a special sight to see both these species at the water's edge here at Old Donyo. This is quite spectacular. You can see even when they lift their heads, they're not even staring in the elephant's direction, like they are attuned to his movements, but it's this female giraffe stepping away from a water's edge now. She had quite a long drink. Possible that she might have had a fill for now. Johan O, you saying this is a great spot for pygmy goose? Johan O, yes, a pygmy goose, from what I understand, they do like the shallower pans and water bodies, often with a lot of water plants, near water lilies. Not sure if you are referring to Old Donyo or to Tau that we were at previously, but I do think that with Old Donyo, I think this watering hole is a little bit busy for a pygmy goose, to be honest, in my opinion. It is a very, very beautiful little bird, and I wouldn't mind seeing one. Rebecca Bishop, you saying that there was a secretary bird here earlier. Oh, a baboon. Well, if ever there's been a cameo on Wild Earth in East Africa, that was it. Came and he even chased off all the other big animals. That is actually quite funny. Now, I haven't seen baboons here at Oldonyo yet, but well done. He got the watering hole all to himself. Looks like a hare, like a male. These olive baboons. And they do have like a little bit of an olivey tinge to them. But that was quite funny. Did not expect that. Spasiankov, you saying it's great to see a group of warthogs and elephants at Oldonyo, and you haven't seen some for a while here. And you're saying that you don't think we've seen warthog piglets yet. Well, I can't recall that I've seen warthog piglets here either. But then again, I definitely haven't seen baboons here. It goes to show how these animals do get around. And that is quite the view there. Also quite thirsty, it looks like. And what a good spot. This watering hole here at Oldonyo is certainly a perfect little watering hole. It's a nice open spot nearby. So it does provide animals with a bit of security in being able to spot danger, should there be any. And just casually strolling off again. Hi to you, Catherine. Good to hear from you. Eddie, you're asking if it's a yellow baboon. From what I understand, it is a olive baboon. In this particular region. I don't think they're the same thing. Well, maybe they might be. That's quite a nice little frame there. Suddenly the big giraffe appeared back into the screen. You can see that baboon walking a zigzag little path through the shorter grass there. Lots of animal dung around, so I'm sure there's a lot of grubs and insects around there, often grasshoppers or locusts that they do tend to go after when they pick them up in the grass. And David from the UK is also saying yellow baboons. So David and Ellie, maybe you might be on to something. But yeah, from what I understand, they are olive baboons. I do think that it is technically the same thing, a yellow and an olive baboon, if I'm not mistaken, and that's due to the fact that they do have this slightly more olivey or yellowish color to the coat. Not but yeah. Well, this is quite interesting actually. I am not too sure which one it is at this point. I've just been given an update that they do. This is quite close. Aldonia is quite close to where there's a potential for the two species to overlap. But and they are actually two different species, yellow and olive, which I was not aware of. So very, very interesting. I'd have to do a little bit more research into this to be 100% sure exactly what the extent of both of them are. But in that case, I think that David and Ellie might be onto something there. And now Spasiankov has joined this conversation with his question. He's saying it's great to see the olive baboons. And I think at Lentore we see other species of baboons, right? So from what I understand, Spas, I know at Lentore we see the olive baboons. So then I'm assuming that here at Aldonia we see the yellow baboons. And great to see Maasai giraffes. Indeed, these are Maasai giraffes, and they are quite spectacular. You can see that bull there on the left being slightly larger than the one on the right. He has a growth on the forehead just in front of the two other horns, which almost looks like a third horn. And I know sometimes unofficially they're also referred to as a three-horned giraffe. But yeah, a feature of the Maasai giraffe. And what spectacular creatures. And we got Idyllic Jess saying the baboons that come to Oldonio are yellow baboons indeed. Thank you for that, Idyllic Jess. I really appreciate that. Now I know as well. So that is very, very good to know, and they are indeed two different species. They, from what I understand, their range and their distribution is quite close to each other, and in some areas even a little bit of overlap. But now that we can see these yellow baboons here, why don't we head over to Lentore and we can have a look there at the olive baboons and see if we can see any marked difference. And here we go. So this is the olive baboons. And what a relaxed atmosphere. I have to say, it's difficult to say for sure. They are in the shade currently, but it does look like indeed there is a bit of a difference within their coat. From what I understand, well, I've just been given a bit of information. The yellow baboons do inhabit more of the savanna side and light forests. Their fur tends to be a little bit less thick and sparse. And then from what I also understand, there's 2 subspecies apparently of the yellow baboon, which is very, very interesting. But indeed, this looks like the olive baboon and the yellow baboons at Oldonyo. So good to know. Something nice to learn for myself as well. Especially since there is quite a few baboon species, and even though one might just think of them as one or never pay too much attention, there's a few different species and subspecies. Very, very interesting. Ellie is asking if the yellow baboons are calmer than the black ones. That is a good question, Ellie. I am not sure exactly what you are referring to as the black ones. I know the ones down in South Africa's southern part they look quite dark, some of them. But then again, we have down in the Cape area where it gets much colder. It's the same species that we find further up in the northeastern part of South Africa, but they look much different. They have much thicker fur, and they look a little bit bigger, kind of like the difference between the olive and the yellow baboon from what I can see. So interesting stuff, interesting conversation. I think it is, and this is why baboons are so fascinating. Like, even though we watch them sit around like this and look at their toes, pick at their toes, their fur, and casually come over for a drink every now and again, there's a lot more going on. Look at that one, just very gently caressing the soil there, the one to the left by the big tree. It was just rubbing there, probably picking up some seeds or whatever fell down there. Baboons are omnivores, which makes them highly adaptable and also enables them to pick up whatever they can from wherever they can. And opportunistic. And there's 2 big baboons to the right there. It looks like the one on the far right moved over to the other one, so it might be a higher ranked. It's just sat down there. So Ili is saying that you've seen the yellow baboons before at Oldonyo, but you didn't know that they were common there. It's an interesting news to learn. Appreciate it very much. Well, Eddie, to be honest, I've also learned quite a lot. I always thought they were potentially the same species, but clearly not. And to be honest, I have seen olive baboon before, not yellow, if I'm not mistaken, many years ago. But we got another interesting question. From Picasso, asking, can you clearly see when a baboon female is pregnant? Picasso, yes indeed, you can. Baboons, when the females go in heat, they have their backside swell up, and it looks rather, it can look quite interesting to somebody seeing it for the first time, and one might even think that potentially there might be something wrong with the animal, but their back end swells up and becomes this red-pink color, and that, of course, with the other chemical signals, is quite a clear sign to the big male baboons that they are ready to mate, but then of course also the behavior also changes like that. There we go. That's some interesting behavior there. It looks like a female that's gone down to the male and presented herself, but from the looks of it she doesn't look in heat. I don't see a swollen back end. So Catherine has also given some more information on the baboon debacle, which is Catherine is saying that olive and yellow baboons both occur in Kenya with an overlap in central and south Kenya. Thank you for that, Catherine. That is from what I understand as well. There is a bit of an overlap, and I'm sure that it's got to do a little bit with habitat, even though their niches are very similar. I think the yellow baboon tends to favor the open areas a little bit more purely savanna, although in the areas that they overlap, I wonder how closely and how they keep separate in terms of keeping to their own species. That is really funny. That is a young baby baboon that couldn't care less. He, according to him, he's got a good branch there over the water, and you can see his little hand under the cheek. What a perfect spot to doze off. You can see there's a little breeze going with the tree's branches moving in the back. Completely disengaged from the rest of the troop at this point. And that is spectacular. You can just see the flanks of this baboon rising up and down as he's breathing. Looks like his eyes is closed. Indeed they are. Fast asleep. Very familiar. Looks like he's got a nice little pillow there with a broken, well, the remainder of a broken branch once was. Oop. Nope. Got a bit of a bite from something. That's quite irritating. That was a very, very comfortable dozing position. And just to have a look at those prehensile feet there, holding on to that broken piece. This baboon clearly needs a rest or a doze, and it must be very hot there, so just relaxing, conserving energy. Of course, the fact that it's got that thick furry coat does present its challenges, even though it's also, well, there's another little baboon sleeping right in the middle in the shade up against the tree bark. And have a look, all of them just calmly sitting at the base. Not so much going on today as we've seen over the past few weeks with these baboons. They've been very busy. Just to have a look. They're all trying to capitalize off the shade. You can see that from the looks of it, The sun is coming over to the left. Sorry, the right. What am I saying? And of course that's why that strip of full shade at the base there where the big baboon's sitting on the left is well occupied, but there's also a few further on. And probably the bare soil also being a little bit cooler from water spilled by animals coming to drink. You can see, there is one baboon. That baboon standing with a tail up there. Now that is possibly a baboon in heat. I know Picasso asked that earlier. I'll have to have a close either way. But sometimes, even though they don't show it, they might be coming into or just going out of and still be seeking some attention. You can see some of the younger baboons coming down the tree now. Difficult to imagine the complete chaos that can roam in some cases in and amongst a troop like this, especially a large troop like this. You see things often change quite quickly, as we witnessed there. And it's interesting that the male baboon is a young one that's run towards him, but sometimes the male baboons will protect the little ones fiercely. And I've noticed when you do have a situation where the troop gets spooked and they run off and one of the little ones get left behind, it's often a male that goes back and grab the little one. And that way they're also trying to do their part for the society or for their group, their troop as they are known. You can see that's where they also gather a few fans. Some of these younger baboons from an early age, especially if it's females, they do get to witness and see the importance of the larger males. But indeed, it's been quite interesting learning about the yellow and the olive baboons this afternoon. So we heard earlier Catherine confirmed to us that they both live and overlap in Kenya, in the central and southern part. So it was good to check in, good to compare. From a visual point, we can see it looks like the olive baboon, slightly bulkier with its fur, and the more slender yellow baboon, and then obviously a little color difference. But while we leave this troop here in the shade, they've been quite accommodating. Let's head back over to Tau and see what's happening there. Aha, we got an elephant with a zebra in the background. Young elephant bull with some red mud on its back. Just look at that glorious water splashing itself, cooling itself down. That looks unbelievable at this stage. It certainly does. Young bull elephant. Oh, there's a waterbuck in the background as well. A big bull waterbuck. I didn't even see him earlier. With his head down, feeding. And this is the time of the year of plenty. All these animals have enough food around. Even though it's very hot, the animals don't move too far from the water like they do here. There's plenty of water currently at the watering hole here. Now it's interesting, this elephant is just about wet every part of his body except his back. Just have a look and see that water comes out very clean, so it's just water, it's not going down deep. So let's see, now he's moving around and he might go to a different spot for a drink. Maybe he wants to wade into the water a little more and of course explore around the edge. Oh, there we go, there's a crocodile. Just saw a crocodile move to the left of the elephant on the bank. Well, I thought I saw the upright scales on the tail. Of course, moving away, making space for the larger animal. But look at that beautiful waterbuck bull there at the back. Nice dark coat currently, big horns, very good condition. It's been capitalizing off this grass growth around these open spaces. Probably also got a territorial patch here. Shazzy Diva. We got a comment from you saying that elephants are the most enchanted species on the planet. And indeed, they are a very, very impressive species, the largest of the land mammals. Also a very ancient line of mammals. But what a beautiful, beautiful animal. And extremely impressive. Very clever, the embodiment of intelligence. And what makes them even better is the fact that they travel in large groups. Ooh, there we can see, that's interesting. There's a little bit of a pale color that was dripping down the elephant's front leg there, so I'm assuming he got a little bit of that concrete mud in the water there. Ellie is saying that the elephant's cooling down the blood over the ears. Indeed, Ellie. It is interesting. I have read some more recent research on elephants where they reckon that just cooling down the ears, not necessarily the most essential part in them cooling down. Throughout the animal's body they have these things called hot spots, which is essentially these spots across the body where the heat gets released, and the whole body essentially that way has this mechanism of cooling itself down, and they strategically place spots where heat gathers and gets released into the environment, and that way the elephant tends to keep itself cool that way, of course with the aid of environmental aids like mud and water. That also helps, and then of course all the blood traveling through the ears, a thin layer of skin at the back enabling it to get cooled down, and that way that cool blood gets transported through the animal's body. And interesting to note that an elephant pumps about 12 liters every minute through those ears. That's a massive amount of blood. It is also a very large animal. A comment from Donna Morgan saying that the trunk and the legs are so tall. Yes, Donna, indeed. This elephant does have an interesting shape. It looks like a younger bull, and he does look very tall on the legs, as they do sometimes. Like, of course, with elephants, like any other thing, genetics is a big part of how they look and how their physical features play out. And you can see there, every time a droplet drops on it, this grey swath of muddy water comes dropping down, and eventually when that dries, that will obviously aid or give the animal its funny hue in its skin. And what's also interesting is you can see it's got a reddish face currently. It's got that tinge of red mud that it used, the same red mud or soil it would have used there on its back, and now of course it's changing its color again by using different mud. Now it is interesting in some areas, especially in transfrontier protected areas, meaning areas that go across boundaries of reserves in different countries but have no fence systems that separate them for the animals. You sometimes can tell the difference, or animals coming from other areas, due to the hue of their skin, traveling from different areas where the soil type or the surface soil type is different. And yes, Ellie, you're saying it's a very nice waterbuck bull. Indeed it is. Who knows, hidden again behind the elephant. Now it was very, very beautiful bull, that. Spectacular indeed. Victoria Pontber, you're saying that you're asking if it's male or female zebra in the background. Victoria, I won't be able to tell you for sure each one of them individually. I think there are some females. I think out of that little group we're seeing there, most of them are likely female, but it might also be that it's a group of young males. Let's have a look. Maybe these ones coming over now I might be able to tell. That looks like a male. One moving over from the right. And there's some playful zebras in the back, maybe two more males, younger males. Having a bit of a competition there. Have a look. They go down, so they try and wrestle each other like that. They go up, try and bite the neck, the nape. And then when they go down like that, they're trying to get to the legs. And these zebra fights, or challenges, tests of strengths rather, can become quite brutal at certain points. We do see in an area like this where there's a lot of other females and younger females congregating, we often see these young males play it out to have some sort of a rank, to be able to challenge the father of a group of zebras to essentially abduct one of his daughters. And then after that the real game starts. But they can be very, very fun to watch. Zebras have quite a short fuse in some cases, even between members of the same group. But how spectacular is this big group of elephants that's just come in? And this is quite amazing. You can see our young elephant bull we were watching is moving off, finding a different spot. Likely does not want to deal with the larger cows in this group currently. Elephants coming down to the water to drink sometimes can be quite rushed, quite nervous, and that might ensure for a little bit of a tough time. Young bulls on their own from older cows. The cows will be quite determined to have their young drink. But interesting, where that tiny baby, or not tiny, but where that young elephant, the three elephants right in the middle of the group, where they are standing, that is where I saw a crocodile disappear into the water earlier. Now, these crocs here at Tau have been known to take some game animals. I think, however, an elephant would be a little bit ambitious. They're not that big. Especially not when all these females are around. But that was a brief drink. Some of them literally just came to patch themselves with some mud. So Picasso is saying that it's interesting that on a zebra the black shin cells go over into the mane's black follicle cells. That is very, very interesting indeed, Picasso. I do know that sometimes what we find, and I've noticed this with other animals as well, you do find that the follicle cells, if they are surrounded by a darker patch, they tend to produce the darker color, and sometimes the hair, being an extension of that patch of the skin, does get affected. But then again, interesting, a lot of these mammals, furry mammals, if you had to take their coat off, they'll be completely black underneath. But indeed, that is a very Interesting remark, Picasso. And what's also interesting about zebra's manes is the zebra, being an animal that generally looks in quite a good condition no matter what the time of the year, one of the ways to tell if things aren't going that well with them is by looking at the mane. There is a very thick layer of fat at the base of that mane, between the muscle groups in the neck, surrounding the neck vertebrate, and in challenging times when it's very dry, that's often what gets affected first, and that's a sure sign that the zebra is not in the best condition it can be. Johan O. Indeed, that is a big elephant herd. That was very, very spectacular to see, even though it was brief. But how beautiful are those reddish brown elephants moving through the green and yellow landscape. I think the hill in the background, that mountain now also being green all over, certainly adds to the breathtaking beauty of this landscape. And a very, very unique view here from Tau Game Lodge. I can't say I've been there, unfortunately. I would love to go see, but it's a very, very unique South African view. But as these elephants are slowly spreading and feeding on some grass and moving away from the water, we're going to head back to Old Donyo and see if there's any other characters coming down than the giraffe or the elephant. Oh, indeed. A spectacular view of a very, very big, beautiful elephant bull. You can clearly see the creases in the skin. Have a look at that. You can see some wetness around the face, the parts that's not directly exposed to the sun. Goes to show how wide those cheekbones do extend. You can see the dried mud on the forehead. You can see where it's cracked. That's a very, very rough skin. Now imagine that extremely strong and hardy forehead there, used to not only push around other elephants, but also to push over big, strong trees. Of course, this is an animal that's been wandering this landscape for a few decades. What a spectacular creature when you look at it up close like that. You can see all the veins and arteries in the ears. Interesting to compare the thinner skin around the base of the ears compared to that thick skin surrounding the trunk and the forehead. The tougher parts, the parts that get used more. Look at those long, long eyelashes. Very wiry, hair-like, made out of keratin. and of course aids in the protection of these animals' eyes, especially an elephant moving in dense, thick areas, often sticking their head right into a thick bush to get to the best, most juiciest fruit and food. And of course for that it needs all the protection it can get. And especially here out in the areas around Oldonyo, you have a lot of thorn trees, or vachelias, or as they were formerly known as acacias. And it's amazing that these elephants just go through them unperturbed. They even eat them. And that is a spectacular landscape with this elephant in the foreground. Big clouds rolling in. Spasiankov, you are asking if elephants get any skin tumors. That is quite a good question, Spaz, because elephants tend to spend a lot of time out in the sun, especially the East African savanna elephant, like this one that we are looking at. And they do exercise quite a lot of protection, or practices that aid in protection and cooling. Not just cooling down, but also using loose sand and debris to cover them on their back. And also sometimes you'll find that what they'll do is they might combine both mud and sand. And we know that their actions around water and mud does actually aid them in their regulation of their body temperature. Being such a large animal can be tricky, even though it's a mammal. But they don't get any skin tumors from what I know. As far as I know, elephants actually do not develop cancer. And it is a phenomenon that's getting studied. And they must have somehow in the past developed and evolved without that gene, which is fascinating. Gina Biddle, you're saying that today has been elephants galore. Indeed it has. It's been elephants galore. It's been spectacular. Look at all those oxpeckers that just came into that giraffe. But there's been elephants all around. Elephants Botswana, Kenya, South Africa. And that is an interesting thing that we'll also notice, I'm sure, as we go ahead over the next month or two and things start to dry out, at least in the southern African region. We'll start to see a little bit more elephants all over. They'll start flocking to the available surface water. Ellie, you saying it looks like quite an old Ellie bull and still impressive. Indeed, Ellie, it looks like a mature elephant bull. I wouldn't say he's ancient. I think he is mature, but I wouldn't say ancient. If I had to take a guess, I'd say I wouldn't even know, but probably just below about 40. I hope that answers your question, Donna. Donna Morgan asked, or said that you wonder what the age of this elephant is. I'd probably put it just below 40 if I had to take a guess, but it's difficult to say for sure. It might be a little bit older. And as the elephant moves off, the giraffe comes in. So let's see. Always a momentary pause before taking a sip. Always better to be cautious, that's for sure. And have a look at those very casual, languid movements of the elephant just disappearing into the background, while the giraffe carefully inspect the area to come down. And it's interesting to see how curious and observant giraffe is when they come down to the water. They pick up on anything, even the small little creatures around, the doves, all of that. Very, very interesting to watch. You can see elaborate stairs all around. If something is off around the water, giraffe are generally nervous. But looks like they might take a while before they decide to drink, so I think let's head over to Tembo Plains in the meantime. Oh, this is spectacular. Tembo Plains in Zimbabwe. Now this is a nice surprise, a first for me. And just have a look at that. There are baby hippos, large hippos, mid-size hippos, hippos out of the water. No matter what their size, this is very, very exciting stuff. On an island in the middle of the river. Just have a look. And this is something that you don't get to see too often, in South Africa at least, where we don't always see hippos near large flowing rivers. They tend to stay in the water during the daytime, where water is more found in more confined spaces, like man-made watering holes. So that's the beauty of being able to see hippos near a big flowing river. But this is spectacular, just have a look. And of course, being one of the few creatures, occasionally you'll find that the buffalo bulls will daringly cross there to go and feed. And elephants, of course. But this is spectacular. And just have a look. The more and more is coming out. You can see they are wet, so it will be interesting to see how long they stay out before they go back in. But there's definitely, look at this large cloud moving over. There's a momentary break in the cloud cover, but it certainly seems that there's some big clouds moving over, and there's a breeze going, and possibly the reason why these hippos are venturing out on the bank. And have a look, there's another baby coming out. So this means there is quite a bit of security in this group, quite a large pod. Not even looking up, they're just bulking up whatever grass they can get. And on the rare occasions that we do see hippos out of the water, it is always fascinating to look at their odd shape. They are also very, not just oddly shaped, but they also have a very peculiar color and often look like they are quite pink. But look at that beautiful forest there in the background. You can see the hills in the back. And of course it's like the heavens opened with just beautiful light on the hippos on the bank in the middle. And we got a question from Jive Bunny, or a comment saying, nice having a cam in Zimbabwe. Indeed, Jive Bunny, I agree. This is very, very cool to see. You can see those banks of the river there, lots of hippos around. It's always, the life around a big river is just something phenomenal and spectacular. Now I can see a lot of the big trees there in the background without leaves. If I had to take a guess, it's probably some winter thorns or anna trees. In a forest, usually the floodplain areas near the banks of the river is usually a good spot for these trees to grow. I don't see the striking yellow color of the fever trees. It can also be here. But we got another comment from Mindy Tillipal saying, oh my word, I've never seen this many hippos out of the water all at once. Agreed, Mindy, this isn't something that you see commonly. Well, at least not where I'm from. I have seen it along the big rivers in other areas of Africa, and it is spectacular to watch. But now I'll have a look. There's one hippo that's moving the other direction, possibly back to the water, or maybe it's just getting too crowded in that spot. So Johan O is asking, why does this group of hippos like to graze during a day, unlike most? Johan, it's because they are so close to the water. There is no immediate threat to them. There's a lot around, so the safety in numbers certainly adds to it. But the fact that they are right next to the water, there's a lot of good green grass. And of course, it looks like it wasn't, well, but the breeze and the overcast weather possibly lend itself to them being a little bit more adventurous. But this is not unusual for hippos around flowing rivers. I've seen this myself quite a bit, and it is quite nice to see. You often find around the big rivers that hippos might spend quite a bit of time out of the water during a day, sometimes even basking on the banks. Not something that you'll usually see near the dams. Areas with a lot of man-made watering holes often also have a lot of other animal activity, like elephant, where along big rivers you find that elephants tend to have their spots that they come down to. Just have a look. Lots of food to go around for all of them. You can see hippos in the back there. And what is that? That was definitely not a vehicle. That looks like a boat. That looks like a boat indeed. What a beautiful view of the mighty Zambezi River. Of course, being such a very large, permanently flowing river, there's a lot of banks, depending on the time of the year that's open, and a lot of different channels. But I think while these hippos are enjoying some good grass on the banks, we're going to head back over to Lentore to see what's happening there. And we have a whole group of vervet monkeys. This is quite spectacular. Looks like a lot of young ones in between. Some females. And some males. Quite clearly distinguished there. Funnily enough, when that male turned around there now, we clearly saw its blue genitals. There's that one moving in the back there. A well-known characteristic of the male vervet monkeys, and hence the other common name, blue vervet monkey. For a long time I thought that's the only reason why they're known as blue vervet monkeys, but I've also seen, if you have a close-up view, that blue color of the skin actually extends all the way onto the flanks of these animals, like onto the flanks and onto the chest. And it's quite interesting. They are very beautiful little monkeys, very, very smart, and also vary greatly in color wherever you might find them. The length of their fur and how they look. These ones look very, very clean cut. Nice to see. And also interesting to see them so close to the watering hole that's occupied regularly by the larger baboons. Generally these two, even though they have similar habitat preferences and they might forage near each other, they generally avoid each other directly. Direct contact. So it looks like that little one, he was keeping his arm off to the side at the back there. Now I'm not sure, maybe he had a bit of an injury, or maybe he just didn't want to wet it. But here we go. You can see something's prompted them to leave. You just see those long tails up at the top as they're disappearing. These blue vervet monkeys, they unfortunately tend to, around camps, they can quite, ooh, that was quite cool, a little bird coming in, didn't see what it was. Clearly piqued the interest of this monkey. What we saw there now is usually a movement that they do when they try to get a better view. When they stand up like that, they also do tend to look a little bit more intimidating, and often a natural reaction to something that they're unsure about. Ellie, you're saying you love vervets. They're beautiful monkeys. I agree, they are very beautiful. Well, at least the ones that's wild, like these ones, the ones that don't become problems. They are very, very beautiful. Unfortunately, we do find that people can't help themselves and they do feed them in certain areas, which is a very bad habit. And unfortunately, for these monkeys, being very clever, they learn that quite quickly, and they learn that bad behavior. And then they become pests, and it's almost impossible for them to change their behavior once they've learned that. There's an interesting grooming session going on there. By the looks of it, a mature male. You can see he's carefully combing through the top side of the tail. Now the other way on the hip. Even though it looks like a mature male, it doesn't look. Sometimes the big males in the groups, they look very, very bulky, very strong. And even though they're so small, they have quite a lot of attitude. Penelope Kenyon, welcome. You saying phew. You made it with 15 minutes to spare, and you'll have to watch the replay. Well, still good to have you on, even if it is just for 15 minutes. And you get the chance to see the beautiful vervet monkeys. Have a look, you can see there the monkey doing the grooming is definitely picking off something, whether it's fleas or other skin parasites. You can see it's sticking it in its mouth, so it's definitely getting some benefit of it. Sometimes even biting it off directly. But with having said that, they also often do that with scabs and other things like that. I think that was a bird flying over that gave him a fright there. And we can see in this monkey, it's interesting, they got a little bit of a browner back here. You can see a bluish tinge to the flank, which is what I was talking about earlier. Like when you do get to see these guys up close, you often, when you get to see into the fur, you notice that they do have a blue undertone in parts of their skin. But then of course that very bright blue scrotum, as we can see clearly from here, is of course what gives them their name. Wildlife Lady, you're saying it's wonderful to see the vervet monkeys here again. It is indeed. Wildlife Lady, I think this is the first time I've seen the vervet monkeys here, and I'm assuming it's because of the regular presence of the baboons. I mean, these monkeys will sometimes move very similar areas nearby, but they won't directly come towards the baboons. Like there is a bit of a competition, and obviously the big male baboons do pose a threat. But then again, the vervet monkeys are also quite clever, very sharp. And they also do have attitude themselves. I had the unfortunate opportunity to watch a few interactions between humans and these monkeys around certain picnic sites in certain areas, protected and otherwise. And in certain towns in the rural areas we do find monkeys sometimes, and they tend to usually go the monkey's way. Big male monkeys can be quite intimidating. Lots of beautiful little finches, looks like fire finches coming down, but I think we'll leave the fire finches to drink, and we're going to head over back to Old Donyo and see what's happening there for the last few minutes. giraffe. And it looks like there's some young giraffe as well. Looks like two very young giraffe. That's very cool to see. I was wondering where they are. There's so many giraffes here, but I hardly ever see the young ones. And have a look. The one off to the right looks very curious. Standing upright, having a look around, probably checking what other giraffe might be in the nearby vicinity. But of course the elephants have given a chance for them to come, and maybe that's why the little ones have come nearby. And baby giraffes are some of my favorite, especially with oxpeckers around. Can become highly entertaining. You think the adults get frustrated, you can imagine the little ones does. You know, their softer fur and often gets pulled out by these birds for a lining for the inside of their nests. So another little interesting benefit for the bird. You can see them flocking in their numbers when giraffes are at the water drinking. Baby giraffes do tend to be kept in certain areas where it's nice and dense with a lot of food around after they're born for a little while. And you'll often find that the mothers might spend quite a bit of time in there nearby, not too far from the baby, until they're a little bit older to start wandering around with them. But beautiful little creatures. Have a look at the long fur at the top of this one's horns or ossicones. Still look a little funny, but beautiful indeed. You can see the large white spaces between the little giraffe. Now, interestingly enough, a long-term study done in East Africa have come to the conclusion that young giraffe tend to, their patterns, they get the resemblance from their mother's side. And what's interesting is that in East Africa, it being so open, the research situation was such that there was a chance to get to see exactly which males mated with which females in the study area. You can see the big male giraffe standing in the background, a little bit darker. Jive Bunny, you're saying it's giraffe Pilates class and you love the young giraffes. Indeed it is, eh? Very, very funny stretches they're doing here, the lengths they go to get a drink. That's why it is so important for them to have good time to drink. And of course, the birds would take advantage of that, but when the elephants and other creatures are around, it makes it a little bit more tricky. So maybe that's why they carefully waited until the coast is clear for the little ones to come down. Jive Bunny, you're also saying thank you for another wonderful show, and you're saying thank you to me, Wild Earth, and the Africam. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. just have a look at all those birds coming down to the water's edge. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like, yep, there we go. I can see one male in breeding plumage. Looks like wattled starlings. And another one of the glossy starlings, which I won't be able to say exactly which one, but the wattled starling is a regular visitor in the open areas. They like to follow the large ungulates, benefiting from whatever little creatures gets kicked up from the long grass as they move at this time of the year. Often grasshoppers, the smaller grasshoppers. Wildlife Lady, very happy that you love today's live at the watering hole, and you're saying thank you to all of us here at Wild Earth, and thank you for joining in. Illy, you're also saying thank you so much to the Wild Earth team and the directors and guides and naturalists for another incredible show. It's so much appreciated, and see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much, Illy. And thanks for all the wonderful questions and comments today. And also to all of the others that joined in. Thanks for those that helped with the olive and yellow baboon situation. Certainly an interesting bit of information to myself. So, with all of those giraffes standing around, looking at each other, not sure what's happening, and there the yellow baboon coming in. I think from all of us here at Wild Earth, I'm going to say good afternoon, and I hope you can join us again tomorrow.